There are 5 subspecies of agali in the fauna of Kazakhstan. The rarest of them live only in the mountains of Karatau. The outdoor KZ TV expedition set in for search of a mysterious Karatau agali. Almost all tasks were accomplished, but on the way back something went wrong and the research expedition turned into a real adventure. The wild nature of Kazakhstan is rich and diverse. For long centuries, mountains, steppes, deserts and forests were the best friends of those who loved and understood their native land. They gave men food, shelter and hideaway from the enemies. Over time, our way of life has changed, but the nature still generously shares its wealth with us. At present, the landscape and biological diversity of Kazakhstan attract an increasing number of tourists and lovers of active recreation. Together with the constantly acting tele-expedition The Outdoor KZ, you will visit the most beautiful pictorial places of Kazakhstan and learn how experienced travelers survive in the wild. The Karatau mountain system crosses the entire South Kazakhstan region, from the western Tian-Shan to the Surdaya River. From the southeastern side, the Karatau is linked with the Borodai-Tau Ridge, which, although having a separate name, is also an integral part of Karatau. In 2006, part of the ridge was given the status of a specially protected area. Here was established the Tulkabas branch of Sayram Ugam State National Natural Park. The team of the constantly acting tele-expedition Outdoor KZ decided to start its trip to Borodai-Tau by visiting the office of the Sayram Ugam State Nature Park. Chief Specialist of Tourism Department Beksultan Meybakov introduced us to the rules of visiting tourist objects on the territory of the park. We have tariffs approved by the committee. The entrance fee to the specially protected area. For a physical person, this is 1/10 of the minimum calculation index of 427 tenge. 200 tenge goes for taxes, and 227 tenge lays down on a special account. A guide is provided separately. Data payment is 1000 tenge. Guide will accompany you all the way, from the beginning till the end and back. We can also offer additional services, horses, and also a hotel. How much does the hotel cost? Accommodation in a hotel for one person is 3000 tenge per day. What about food? The meal is not included. In order to get to Borodai-Tau from the city of Shymkent, you need to go on the way to Almaty along the highway, Western China, Western Europe. There are many roadside cafes and shops along the way. This is the last opportunity to grab a bite and stock up on everything necessary before the long journey. We've stopped in Shymkent to buy food. Yes. How much? Here is our traditional bread. This is Shymkent bread, so big. How great is Kazakhstan? At first glance it seems that people and their way of life are the same as everywhere else, and they speak the same language. But looking closely, it is easy to see the exciting difference between the regions. For example, inhabitants of the south are very enterprising. Commercial vein at them is successfully combined with traditional diligence. Today we will have breakfast in a cafe. Here they give the famous Shymkent Lagman. To the right of the road, there are white snowcaps of the summit of Talas Alatau, and to the left extends the ridge of Borodai-Tau. This is exactly where we need to go. We left Shymkent and on the 60th kilometer in the region of the village of Jaskesu turned left towards the ridge of Borodai-Tau. And now along the country road we are moving towards the Karatau ridge. The weather today is not very good. It's rainy, but let's hope that we'll reach it. The entrance to the protected lake Balıkçı is controlled by the inspectorate of the park. We are met by engineer of the park, Gani Kulbayev. Right from the shore it is possible to see how fast shadows are moving in the depth of the lake. This is an ordinary marinka. It can be found almost in all the rivers of Karatau and it is allowed to fish it. Ordinary marinka should not be confused with Ili or Balkash marinka, which are included in the Red Book. The Balkash marinka most likely has completely died out, and the Ili marinka is preserved in the separate rivers of Semirechye. But an ordinary marinka in the South Kazakhstan region is quite common and even numerous in some places. Marinka is a delicious fish, but one must bear in mind that its caviar is poisonous. In this lake you cannot fish because it is located on a protected site, but in other places you can look for the fishing luck.
Мы сейчас проезжаем аул Пстили. Слово Пстили переводится как фисташка.
We are now passing the village of Psteli. The word Psteli is translated as a pistachio or pistachio seeds. In fact, the valley of the Kokbulak River, now we can see below, has always been famous for its rich pistachio-like wild forests. But by the middle of the 20th century, these forests have degraded, and in 2014, after the creation of the Sayram Ugam National Park, cultural varieties were brought from the Tashkent nursery and successfully introduced into the valley of the Kokbulak River. Now scientific study of both wild and cultural forms of pistachios is being carried out. In addition to pistachios, local people grow pears, apples, plant sunflowers and some varieties of cereal crops.
Ограничено некоторые сорта зерновых культур.
The road from the foothill plains gradually turns into a ravine and landscape changes.
На южных склонах хребта Баралдай встречаются целые рощи.
On the southern slope of the ridge of Boroldai, there are whole groves of hawthorn. The fruits of the hawthorn serve as the basis for the fodder base for wild boars, badgers, different kinds of birds, and besides serves as a valuable source of medicinal raw materials for the pharmaceutical industry. The Kokbulak River is one of the tributaries of the Aris River. In the spring it is quite turbulent, and in the summer pacifies its temper and turns into a small mountain stream with crystal clear water. In the summer heat season, Shymkent residents come here to rest in the shady walnut groves from the summer heat and city noise.
Sayram Ögen Mülkiyet Ultu Tabii Parkı'nın aumağına 2015 yılı 15.764 adam kırdı.
In 2015, Sayram Ugam National State Nature Park has been visited by 15,750 tourists, of which about 300 were foreigners. And in 2016, already 19,600 tourists have visited it. Among them, 400 were foreigners. We annually hold an Alpiniad in which up to 300 climbers and mountain tourists participate.
Жыл сайын өткізілетін Alpiniadaға 2016 жылы 400-ге жуық адам кірді.
On the bank of the river, in a walnut grove, a cordon and a guest house are equipped for the employees and guests of the park. Today we will have a night stand on the cordon of Kokbulak. Here flows the same-name river, Kokbulak. It starts on the snowy peaks of the Mali Karatau, flows through the valley and falls into the Aris River. And now we'll see how we can settle down. The cordon is buried in the shadow of huge walnuts. These trees are about 50 years old and they still are fruit-bearing. Tonight, the group can spend the last night in relatively comfortable conditions. It is necessary to sleep well, because tomorrow there is a hard way to reach the crest of the ridge.
Сейчас мы в составе группы службы.
Now we, as a part of the security service group of the Sayram-Ugam National Park, go to the Mali-Karatau Ridge to install photo traps on the Argali. It is inhabited by a very rare subspecies of Argali, Karatau Argali or Ovis amon nigrimontana. In total, there are several hundred of them in the world, maybe 300 to 400, and one group inhabits this gorge on the cordon of Kokbulak. The next morning, the film crew, together with the specialists of the national park, Yesken Orakbayev and Gani Kulbayev, goes on the route.
Сайрам мемлекеттік ұлт табиғи паркында Түлкібас филиалының номер 3 Көкбұлақ орман айналымында жануарлардан.
The Karatau Argali, entered in the Red Book, lives here in the Tulkebas branch of the Sayram-Ugam National Natural Park. There are badgers. Of the birds, you can find golden eagles and hawks. There are a lot of wild relatives of cultivated plants: pistachio, walnut, grapes and Kaufmann's tulips. There is also marinka in the river. It is quite easy to cross the river. The water level is just above the knee. For the sake of convenience, we use rubber shoe covers, but in extreme cases you can take off your shoes and go to the other side barefoot. Beyond the river, a rare fruit forest begins. Hawthorn, pistachio, wild apple trees. The first bright yellow-white flowers appear on the glades. This is Kaufmann's tulip. It was first described by Eduard Regel in 1878. The famous botanist named the tulip in honor of the Governor-General of Turkestan, Konstantin Kaufmann, who provided Karatau researchers with organizational and financial assistance. And this bright red tulip bears the name of the famous botanist Samuel Gregg. It grows on the same meadows with Kaufmann's tulip, but the vegetation period begins a few days later. The tulip of Gregg was also first described by Eduard Regel during an expedition to Karatau. Here are the famous pistachio forests, but the pistachio is not yet blooming, it's too early. Here in 1999, in the territory of the forestry, when there was no national park yet, there was a fire. It was localized. It has been put out, but a few hectares of pistachio forest burned out. And now here we see young trees, pistachios. There is a natural renewal of the forest, which will soon begin to bear fruit again. While moving forward, the slope becomes steeper. Traces of Argali begin to appear, and at last the security engineer Gani Kulbayev, through the binoculars, notices the first group of mysterious animals. Now from a distance we saw 6 individuals of Argali. However, the camera lens cannot capture because the images are not clearly visible. Argali are very sensitive animals. At the slightest rustle, they are ready to run, rushing headlong. They can even catch the smell of a man in the wind. It is impossible to take a photo of Argali from this distance. we have to creep closer, although this is not always possible. It is necessary to choose a headwind and skillfully hide behind the irregularities of the relief. This is a female argali, a female with a calf. In winter, argali lead a herd life. Males, females and calves graze in one herd. But when the time comes, the females retire in the most inaccessible corners of the mountains and stay there until the kids grow up and get strong enough to withstand the general rhythm of movement of the herd. At this time, males form temporary bachelor groups. In the heat, they prefer to stay on the northern slopes where the snow lies till the end of May. Youth is youth. When they are full, they want to frolic, fool around and make fun of their comrades. In the mountainous terrain, it is almost impossible to make an absolute record of wild rams. Too much force and money would have to be used for this. But for the sustainable management of wild, ungulate populations, absolutely accurate figures are not required. Information within the permissible error will be enough. The number is usually determined on the basis of expert assessments of experienced accountants. Today we saw 6 argali, a female with a calf and 4 young males. Unfortunately, we were able to see them only from afar. Therefore, in order to see them in more detail, let's try to install photo traps. Modern technology allows specialists of the national park to more accurately collect data on the abundance and spatial distribution of rare animals. We conduct continuous monitoring of argali. Now they have a period of spring appearance of the offspring. With the onset of spring, argali can often be seen next to saline lakes. We have especially set up photo traps here. The photo traps are installed. Yasken and Gani return to the camp. They have a lot of other work related to biotechnical activities, and our operators, Maxim and Alexander, stay for a couple of days in the mountains to get more video for the program. In Karatau, there are many animals that can be found only in the south of Kazakhstan. One of them is the so-called glass snake. It is a legless lizard from the genus of pincer spindles, very similar to a snake, so earlier even locals were afraid of it. In length, these reptiles can reach 1.5 meters and have a rather frightening appearance. Glass snakes are now included in the rare book and are protected by the law. If you are hungry, then in the mountains there is always a chance to refresh by the pie plant.
Ревень не только вкусный, но и полезный.
Pie plant is not only delicious but also very useful. It can be eaten raw. From it, jams and compotes can be made. And pie plant is considered a medicinal plant. It helps to cure gastric diseases. Its main advantage is that it appears in the early spring, when there are still no berries and fruits, the first spring vitamin. Peel should be removed. A soft core can be eaten, and you can cook borscht and compote from it.
Можно есть. А можно варить борщи, компот.
It's time to check the photo traps. Photo hunters are the same gambling people like classical hunters. But the difference is that the meat of the mined animals will be eaten, the fur will eventually decay, and a good photo or video will preserve the memory of past adventures for many years. The photo trap allows us to look closer at the mysterious Karatau argali in all details. Are they different from their relatives from Tianshan? Scientists believe that in the absence of insurmountable barriers, Karatau argali can freely interbreed with Tianshan rams and form new forms. For this, the so-called ecological corridors are needed. On the motorways and railway embankments, passages for migrating animals are specially built. Constant monitoring of the state of the population of Karatau argali is necessary for the proper management of this valuable biological resource. Argali, like other rare and endangered animals, were brought into the Red Book. But it is necessary to strive not only to stop their extinction, but also to increase the population. When a species is removed from the Red Book, this is the best indicator of the quality of nature protection in the country. On the second night, the weather changed dramatically. A stormy wind blew for several hours in the tent and a real shower poured in. The next morning, the calm river of Kokbulak showed what it is capable of. The water level rose almost a meter, and our operators were in the island. We urgently needed to save our property. Well, we wanted adventures, and it seems like the adventures found us themselves. Yesterday, this river was a small brook with clear, crystal clean water. Now it is a roaring stream of coffee color, and we do not know how to cross it. But the main adventure is that we put the tent on the riverbank at an altitude of about 1 meter above the water level, and it never entered our head that water could rise so high overnight. It has got up, went out of the shores, and our tent was on the island. And in the morning we were nearly flooded. Now our task is to cross the river to get to the car. But how to do it? We do not know yet. I think it's absolutely impossible. Another opinion is that we have to wait here for a week while the water level drops. It was too dangerous to pass a stormy river without any belay. Our operators had no choice but to go downstream, hoping that somewhere there would be a fallen tree along which it would be possible to cross to the opposite bank. The banks of the river were so thickly overgrown with floodplain forest that in 2 hours the guys had hardly managed to advance 300 meters. There was no crossing. If the fallen trunks were hanging over the water somewhere before the rain, the raging stream had already demolished them.
Ну вот так вот, нам с нашим оператором придется здесь ночевать, потому что шансы...
Well, like that, we'll have to spend the night here with our operator, as we do not see any chance of crossing the river. If we had a rip schnoor, we could try to set up a ferry, but without a good rope, it's almost a suicide. And we will not risk. We'll wait until the water level falls down. It's boring to lie in a tent all day, especially when the food ran out. It seemed that rain was not going to slow down. Yes, guys, I do not know how to describe this situation. Some kind of a worldwide flood happened. Lying several hours in the tent, our operators came to the conclusion that the situation requires them to do something. In order not to lose heart, you need to do something urgently. Once the fate put in the position of Robinson, then you need to remember what in such cases Robinson did. Of course, he fished. Since there is marinka in the river, there must be a way to catch it. Like all experienced travelers, Alexander had a hook and a piece of fishing line in his backpack. When Maxim saw what kind of fishing rod Alexander made, his heart contracted. The spark plug is a good sinker, but the water flow flutters it like a fluff. Yes, it seems that something is wrong with the river. The water flow resembles a washing machine. It's unlikely that the fish will have an appetite in such a whirlpool. Apparently, our fishermen have chosen an unsuccessful season. Well, in general, I think we have no chances. Chances are zero. Nothing bites. After suffering a crushing defeat in fishing, our operators did not fall into the sin of despondency. They took a temporary failure as a challenge to fate and with renewed strength continued to search for food. Hunting without a gun in our time is difficult, but there were no animals around. A married couple of glass snakes does not count. They are listed in the Red Book. And finally, good luck. Our operators once again remembered the old parable about the frog and a pitcher of milk. Mushroom hunting proved to be much more productive than fishing. Well, we solved the food problem easily. We have collected a whole bag of vems and morels. Here it is, the blue-legged mushroom. You see its blue stripe, and this is the famous mushroom delicacy of petit morels, which the French really love. Now we will cook the French delicacy from it if we manage to make a fire. I do not know what dish to cook from it, but we will improvise. We have matches, salt, dosherak noodles and sugar, and 2 bags of mushrooms. Unexpectedly, our operators got not just a dish for dinner, but a real elite delicacy. Very tasty. All the hardships are carried out much easier on a full stomach. The rain seemed to understand that it could not break our travelers and began to quietly slow down. By the morning, the rain had completely subsided and the sun came out. The forest no longer seemed as gloomy as the day before. The water level in Kokbolak began to decline quite rapidly also, and then the friends heard the neighing of horses. It was Gani and Yesken. It was not difficult to cross the river on a horse. At the cordon, the film crew said goodbye to their new friends and went on, because new adventures are awaiting us. The nature of Kazakhstan is so rich and vast that a lifetime won't be enough to see all its beauties and wonders. The constantly acting tele-expedition Outdoor KZ does not say goodbye to the esteemed viewers. We say, see you next time.